Wapendwa, welcome back. Have you subscribed? Yes, you. Have you subscribed? Thank you. So, we will continue our discussion with Anne. Now, from August to end of October, you're already in the process of now taking in the child fully. And there's a difference. I expect there should be a difference when it comes to vetting for a holiday season or someone who is taking or fostering the child fully. Take us through what the vetting processes now that changed from the first vetting process.
Actually, there wasn't much of a difference because I think what had happened for us the first time is we had been taken through a majority of it. Or the only thing that we hadn't presented for the second time was the only thing that changed during the second time is now the children's department where we live. We live in our places in Kiambu County. So the children's department, they had to get involved. And foster parenting, by the way, is only for a year. You're only allowed to do it for a year. And then after a year, you're vetted again and given another year like that. But you can only do it for 3 years. And then of those 3 years, then a decision has to be made on whether you want to now make it permanent or the child has to go back or something like that. But you can only do it for 3 years.
And when you say the word permanent, what does permanent involve? Is that where the adoption comes in?
Yes, and now there are other options where there is guardianship. You can either do guardianship or you can do adoption. And guardianship and adoption now are long term.
You went and picked your daughter and she's with you in the house. I just wanted to understand, you already told me, the challenges and the kind of environment they grew up and how it's so different in the outside world, specifically in Nairobi. How did you help your daughter to blend in? Let's start from schooling.
All right. So we come in end of October. It was the last day of October, I remember. Either the last day of October or the first day of November. But I know it was right at the transitioning of the month. And so now, of course, like you've mentioned, there are many things that need to happen. This child needs to go to school. This child needs to make friends. This child needs to settle. And one of the things that we had to deal with, and I guess we are still dealing with up to now, is because of the school that she was going to. And I think many of us are aware, rural schools can be limited in very many ways. So because of that, the quality of education may not, I don't want to say it's poor or it's low because, people have different levels of pace and everything.
Yes.
But truth be told, it cannot be compared to what is in towns, and especially Nairobi. Even a public school in Nairobi, I don't think can compare to a public school in rural areas. So like I said, I had mentioned at some point, one of our biggest challenges was language, because I could only speak Kiswahili. And then we also realized that in terms of academics, she was very, very behind.
Okay.
So by this time, let me mention that by the time now she's coming to settle completely, she's 8 years old. And she had just completed her preschool. Preschool, nowadays they call it what? PP1 and PP2. So you need to go to grade 1, which is already behind. But that's really not the matter. The issue was just realizing how far behind we were and what we needed to do to catch up. So that November and that December, we did a lot of homeschooling. So that we could be able to cover the PP1 and the PP2 syllabus very well. So we would have school every day, actually. So we would have school here every day at home up to around noon. And because of that, we are thankful that by the time January came, when she went to do her interview, we had already done the catching up. And now she was able to pass her interview and go to grade 1. However, the other thing that we had to do for school, and it's one of the things that you have to think about when you're doing for support parenting is what kind of school would be best for this child to settle in comfortably. I say that because you cannot get a child from your rural area, for example, and then straight come and take them to let me call them the high-end kind of schools here in Nairobi. You can't do that because you have to get a safe landing point or a landing pad for this child. So a place where they can slowly adapt to like the language, like lifestyles, like the things that the children are talking about. So if you, for example, take a child who's never had experiences with things like like even just all these crazy shows and games and whatever that the children engage in, and then this child will be completely left out. So you have to look for a place where this child can settle in.
For them to settle in.
Yes. So for us, we had to compromise where we would want her to go versus where she needed to be to settle. And we were able to locate a school which is not far from where we live, which was sort of going to serve that need. So where she'd be comfortable communicating in Kiswahili as she learns English, so where children speak both languages, English and Kiswahili, so that it's not awkward if you can only speak Kiswahili, for example. And those kind of things. So we were able to settle her in school that way.
Specifically, you, Anne, at this moment when, like the child is finding very difficult to settle in school or make friends or even, get around household items and everything, how was it for you, Anne, as a mother?
I think now, I'll talk about my experience from that time to this point. I think it's been such a roller coaster journey. That's how I would describe it. In that, it was honest. There's been many highs. There's been many lows. And the highs, I think, have been more. Thinking about it, it's been very, very, very satisfying. Just watching this child grow and transition and transform from the person that I knew then to the child that she is now, build her confidence, develop her confidence, learn to communicate, learn to express herself freely, learn to do things in the house, even just very basic things in the house, like now I don't have to be there when you're brushing your teeth, or you can try things like even simple things like make your bed, I guess. Just simple things. And the lows have come from the challenges and the frustrations sometimes, because I think what happened to me, and it's a lesson that I've learned that right now I would share with anyone that would ever want to do foster parenting or adoption or guardianship, and especially for the older children. With a newborn, I think it's different because they grow with you, they adjust with you, you culture them in the way that you would want to culture your children. But all the children, when you get a child who's 7 years old, that's a child who's already developed, has a personality, has their preferences, has their way of viewing things. And you also have your way of viewing things, you have your expectations for your child, you have so bringing the two together, I think has not been easy. Dealing with issues of confidence and self-esteem also has not been easy at all. And I think for me, one of the biggest mistakes that I made, and I did know better, and is that I think I had expectations. In my head, I was thinking, this is a girl who's 7 years old, we're going to have baby and daughter born. And then this child came and I realized, oh my goodness, I have a child who's 7 years old, but is her, what would I call it? I don't know if I can call it development, or her level of exposure is almost that of a 3 or 4 year old or something. Like there's so many things that this child does not know. So I think that's one of the biggest mistakes that I made, and now I've learned that I had expectations, because I think I was thinking, a 7 year old, then I'm looking at a 7 year old that's around me, including some of my nieces, and I'm thinking, this is a child who knows how to do her thing. So that's where expectations have come from. And then it's I would also compare it to what, I guess, even just like with your spouse. You've never met this person, then you meet and you have to live together. So you discover something new almost every day, almost every week, and it sort of takes you aback. You know, like, oh, and then when something happens, I keep saying that when something happens, you don't know how deep it runs. And let me give you an example. When your child, for example, Abdi, you're a dad, when your child does something, you sort of have a history of that behavior. Is it the first time you're observing it, or is it something that this child is doing? For me, when or when you have a child that you've taken in, when something happens, like for example, say a child tells you a lie, you don't know if it's the first time or it's just happened because they were trying to get out of a situation, or you don't know if it's something that runs deep. You don't know how deep it runs. You don't know if this has been there. So sometimes you don't even know how to deal with it. And so even issues of disciplining, for example, become very tricky because you sort of you missed out on this child's life for a whole 7 years.
Yes.
So when things happen, you're thinking, okay, how deep does this run? A 7-year-old also has questions that are very difficult and deep and challenging. They are already figuring out issues of identity, and they are asking themselves those questions of, why wasn't I in a home all these years? I mean, who are you? Why are you in my life? What, I mean, those things are there, and you have to deal with it. So you also may not, even though you would be given a brief background of this child, you may not know some of the things that have happened in the past that probably could be traumatic, that could affect how this child behaves. Like sometimes something will happen and I will see an expression and I'll be like, okay, that one is not a normal expression, and that one is not a surface thing, it's a deep thing. I'll give you an example. I think there's a time when we were going to a play place, and so it was myself, my husband, and our daughter, and so we went to this place. It was a playground, and so it was an activity sort of for children, and so just in an attempt to introduce her to some of these things, and when we went, so our idea was we'll sit by the sidelines and just, watch how you take your child to go and do things and watch the instructors and things like that. And when we went, this child couldn't get herself to walk to the rest of the children. She just gripped on my dress like a 2-year-old child would.
Oh my
and
God.
She just, and I realized, I didn't realize that this fear is in there. And at that point, I don't even know what it is. Is it the fear of these children will not accept you? Is it the fear of how will I make a friend? Is it the fear of how will I communicate? So those intimidations, and we just realize, this child can't do this, and we are not going to be able to do this today. So you walk that, so you go and deal with it and have to try and dig deep. Okay, so what are you afraid of? What were you thinking? And sometimes even the child doesn't know. They don't know how to express it to you. So, for you as a parent, you note it somewhere, and okay, this is something we may need to address or deal with. So just learning how to balance the issue of let's do life. Because, this is not a project that you've been given to come and fix. They are a human being. And you have to let them live life also how they know it.
Yes.
How do we allow that to happen freely versus how do we help you deal with the things that need to be dealt with? Because also as responsible parents, there are things which we would just watch and be like, okay, we can let that go. So where do you draw the line?
Wow.
So I think for me, the whatevers are so mixed up. A majority of the days are good. We are good. We have fun. She's a very gifted child. Our child is a very gifted child.
Let me ask you. We are not an island. We all come from family and everything. I understand that, there were a lot of conversations and a lot of decision making in between you and your hubby. I just wanted to understand, how was it like coming around the rest of the extended family? And how was the reception?
Honestly, Abdi, I think if I can answer that question in just a very straightforward way, I think for us that was easy. Okay. That was easy because, and it's one of our biggest blessings in this journey, because our families have been very, very supportive.
Wow.
Very supportive. our families embraced these children. They've allowed them in their homes to bond with their children, to make friends with them. So it's really, really, really helps these children settle, by the way. Just that sense of belonging. Now I have cousins, I have aunties, I have uncles. That really helps these children settle. And for us, that's been a major blessing. You know, all our families, we've not had anyone that has had an issue of, oh, what's this about? And of course, sometimes they would ask questions of concern, like, how have you thought through these? Are you sure about these? But each one of them, once we expressed our interest and we say this is what we want to do, I mean, they were very receptive. They've cheered us on, they've accommodated us very well, and
I'm concerned because as you said, the process of foster parenting, even adoption and everything, is not something that is so familiar in Kenya. I understand your family was very supportive, but how was it like for the rest of the society, like friends, you know, extended relatives, neighbors? How was the reception like, and what are some of the challenges you went through with them?
I think some of the things that we've experienced is just the lack of awareness is a bit too much, to the point that I guess that's why we don't even mention it a lot, because when you do, it's almost like you open a Pandora box, and sometimes you don't have the time to have that conversation, or sometimes you don't even feel like, because, and it's a good thing, it's not a bad thing, but it just creates a curiosity that sometimes can be intense. Oh, what's that? How? Like, you know, all those kind of things. So, and like I said, it's not a bad thing. It's just hit me the level of unawareness around these things. And I think the most awkward question that someone asked me was, and this was sort of in a group. We had gone to someone's house for something, and I mentioned it, and someone asked me, oh my goodness, so hey, I've always thought about the issue of adoption and whatever, but I just always wondered, what if you raise this child and then someday they decide you're not their parents? And I thought, okay, I can understand the question, but then it boils down to then what are your motives for doing it? Because I don't think, my husband and I don't do it for ownership, you know, like, oh, now we own this child. You do it to give someone a home, give someone a chance in life, give someone an opportunity to develop their skills and their talents. Like now our child is working on so many things. She's working on music, she's working on art, she's doing so many things which she would never, she's a very good artist.
Wow.
They pay very well.
Wow.
She's good with instruments. Now she can play the keyboard and the guitar and sings really well. So those are things that opportunities, I mean, nurturing those gifts and talents are things that she probably would not have had an opportunity in that setup. So that's the reason you do it, to give someone an opportunity, a child an opportunity in life, to give them a home and family setup. I think these are things that are new to us. And I say that because I think culturally, and we had a very good culture in the past. Culturally, we didn't have children in children's homes. Culturally, what would happen is if a child was abandoned, if a child's parents died, if a child's parent was imprisoned, if a child's parent was incapacitated, maybe by disease or sickness or their jail or things like that, the immediate relatives took over.
Or even neighbors.
Or even neighbors, and that child just grew up knowing, and even now I know that we have many children in Kenya that are growing up in those kind of setups. So, and they were just, so because it was a child that was already known in that community, they were not strangers, you know, or like foreigners. But now this is new to us, where we are having the children's homes increase in number, the children that are abandoned are increasing in numbers. So having to go for a child who nobody knows their background or their history or they've never met, that can be a bit uncomfortable. But I guess you have to deal with it. You have to make the choice as a parent, and that decision is not just for you, but because you also have a responsibility to protect this child. So you have to toughen up and make that decision to deal with it, to deal with those challenges as they come.
Okay. Anne, saying I'm proud of you is actually understatement. You and John are just people to look up to, people to really emulate. You guys have a big heart. You already told us the kind of challenges you went through, but you never gave up. And see where you are now, beautiful child, and you are a happy mother. John is a happy dad, and I am very happy for you guys. I'm happy for the daughter. I'm happy for you. I'm happy for John. I'm happy for your whole. All I want to ask you guys is please subscribe, join my Wapendwa team, and be part and parcel of such kind of conversations that will be happening every second Saturday of the month and the last Saturday of the month. Thank you very much. I really appreciate. I'm here for you guys. I'm here for us all.